a lot of hurting people in churches are they're casualties of the last guy's incomplete vision. I have paid a extremely high price for the vision and the mission of this place. And if you ever fight me for the vision of the church, I will fire you on the spot. You have to find your resolve. And that resolve is not your insecurity. It's not your anger. It's not your ego. It is, this is what God has called me to. Ministry looks like the cross of Jesus. It doesn't look like the throne of an ungodly king.
Hello and welcome to another Momentum Ministry Partners podcast. We are so delighted that you have joined us and that you're tuning in today for this conversation. We have with us the one and only Jeff Bogue. Jeff, welcome back.
Thank you. It's been a while.
Some of our listeners thought that maybe you got kicked off the podcast for saying something you shouldn't have said. You do joke about that.
Yeah, I just have not been invited on by Eric, my friend, and the guy that works for me has not invited me on the podcast.
We haven't had a need.
No. Oh wait, so I'm like, you don't have a better option, so you invite me on person.
It was like, we should have Jeff back. Remember that guy? Remember our friend Jeff? Remember him? He works here, I think.
Back in the day, is he still alive?
It's good to have you back.
Yeah, it's good to be back. It's fun.
Yeah, Jeff, we've been running ads off of our very first podcast from this season, where we told some of the story about how you and I got to be in charge of Momentum and how, Momentum, why Momentum exists, and we talked about the good old days, and we've been running ads off that episode. It's been awesome. It's been awesome to see the growth. So let's do it again. Let's run it back.
Okay.
All right, Jeff, today for this conversation, we're going to talk about something that you and I both might know a thing or two about, and maybe it'll give us some nervous twitches. So you have to switch over and watch on YouTube if you want to see our nervous tics here as we talk about how to take a hit in ministry and keep going.
Oh, boy.
Jeff, is this any... He's already started.
Yeah.
How do you take a hit in ministry and keep going? I think it's one thing to say how to take a hit. You're like, yes, if you're in ministry of any kind, of full-time especially, you're going to take some hits. You're going to get some lumps. But the key question here is, how do you keep going? So, Jeff, for our listeners maybe that don't know you super well, give us kind of the context. You've been in ministry for 130 years now, and
approximately 130 years. That's right.
When you think back to those early years, what was harder than maybe you would have expected it to be? We'll start there.
Yeah, so I've been in full-time ministry for almost 33 years, and I started as a youth pastor, and then became a senior pastor. So I think the hardest thing for me, honestly, when I first got in the ministry, when I think about that far, is I didn't know. It never crossed my mind that people were going to fight me. I know that I thought that I wanted to love you. I wanted to invest in your life. I wanted to share life with you. And I thought that was going to be reciprocated. It never crossed my mind that people would resent you, or that I didn't have an understanding of the deep unhealth of people and how that unhealth could show up in ways. I didn't have any concept about people not trusting me or second guessing a decision, or et cetera, et cetera. So I was mostly just surprised by it. And I was, and I didn't know how to deal with it at first, because I remember there'd be a kid that would blow up on me, or a parent or whoever, and I'd just be dumbfounded. I mean, what in the world? I was just telling you what the Bible said, or I was just trying to help you with a problem. And then later on, when you start to get into like really carrying vision and making decisions about programming, things like that. I didn't know that people would be so opinionated, that they wouldn't be excited about reaching the lost, etc. And then later on, as a senior pastor, I had no idea that people would bring agendas to the table and would literally fight you for control over things. So I was just shocked by the whole thing. I didn't grow up in a healthy church, and I didn't really have any understanding or exposure to the behind the scenes of the unhealth and what drove that and caused that and all the rest. So, yeah,
Mm.
so I was mostly just surprised about the whole thing.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that and being real. I myself have been in ministry for like 2 or 3 years. And so I'm so young. I'm so young.
Yeah, so young. You
But
just you just you just been through a lot, man. It's just
yeah,
taking its toll.
yeah. I look good. I look good for being 85.
Yeah, that's right.
I think many young youth pastors, many young pastors, when you kind of step into your first stages or the entry points of your ministry, your passion, your clarity on the calling, like those things take over. And so I love what you're saying. Like, yeah, you do get like, man, I love these people and I really want to invest. And here's the vision that God's given me. And everybody's going to just jump on board. And when that doesn't happen, it can be a challenge. It can be unsettling. So what do you do with that, Jeff? How do you navigate those hardships? Sometimes I think people maybe think we need to like double down and we're going to just, shut ourselves in a room and get to the bottom of this. And sometimes that doesn't work out either. Sometimes you avoid it and go the other way and you think, well, I'm just going to move on without them. What does that look like? What's the healthy thing to do?
I think first of all, I think you have to stop acting like something unusual is happening to you. That's what the Apostle Peter said to the early church. He's like, stop acting like this isn't the game. So just because it surprised me doesn't mean that it was surprising. I just didn't know about it. Well, once I learned about it, I'm like, oh, this is the gig. That people are hard to lead. And so you go back and you read Moses and the Exodus differently, and you read even some of the cantankerous stuff between Paul and Peter and Paul and others in the early church. There's something about religion that causes people to fight for their personal views and their personal agendas that's different than other things. And there is a way to weaponize the scripture, um, so that you can take a very minute part of scripture and amplify it into the biggest deal that's ever been amplified in, and then decide you're going to sever a relationship over it. And churches are kind of famous for doing that. And I think you have to realize that is the arena that you step into. You step into people who are hurting. You step into people who have agendas, and underneath and behind those people that have agendas, and behind those people maybe that have very twisted agendas, there's a bunch of innocent people who are waiting to be led and rescued. Um, Behind some of those agendas, sometimes those people are really, really hurt, and you need to bring some healing and help to them. And then sometimes you just have to realize you're just the next person in line. So I remember when I first became a senior pastor, a guy was very adversarial to me. We cracked heads several times, and I remember realizing, oh, he doesn't trust me. And then I remember thinking, I'm like the fifth senior pastor that stood in his church building and said, you should trust me.
Mm,
And he is the constant in the church, not me. So I had to earn trust. It took time. And,
mm,
the Bible talks about winning over an adversary. And he's now a dear friend that I love a ton. And we kind of raised our kids together, but he wasn't being a jerk just to be a jerk. He's like,
right.
why would the last four guys said, trust me, and lied to us and left. Why are you
Mm,
different?
mm,
So I think you have to start by like sorting all of that out, and it takes a minute to categorize people. Like that
Mm,
person's hurting, that person has trust issues, that person's innocent. And then in there it may be like that person's a jerk, and that's the one I actually need to stand up to.
mm,
And that's the one that we need to crack heads with. So you have to do that. In order to do that, you have to have a certainty of where you're leading people. And I'll say this here. I've said it many times over the years to in different settings. If you are going to introduce vision, and that vision is going to be destructive to the status quo. So a super easy, kind of an old example, but a super easy example would be this. If you're going to change a church from hymns and pews to guitars and chairs, right? So you're really going to disrupt the status quo
mm,
and all that. Don't you dare do that unless you're going to write it out.
mm,
And if you do that, you get halfway through it and then decide that it's too hard, you're wrong
mm,
for doing that.
mm,
Because now what you've done is you've thrown people into chaos.
mm,
So if you're going to cast vision and that vision is going to be transformative vision, you better have the courage and the strength and the determination that you're gonna see that vision through to the end. I'll never forget when I became a senior pastor. We were doing our first building program, and we were going to build a new auditorium. And I remember looking at the finances. We were going to take on some debt, all those kind of things. And back then I was young, and I would get a job offer once a month. You're the young guy that's going to come fix our church kind of thing. So I remember going to Heidi, because Heidi and I would pray about these things, because you're trying to figure out, is it a job offer, is the Lord calling me, all those kind of things. And I remember sitting down with Heidi and I said, listen, if we're ever leaving Akron, Ohio, it's got to be right now.
mm,
And she was like, why? And I said, because I'm not putting these people in debt and then leaving.
mm,
If I'm going to ask them to trust me and we're going to go into debt, I feel morally obligated to see that through, barring a Damascus Road experience.
mm.
Not because I got a job offer in Southern California and it's warmer there.
Right.
Like, I got to see it through. Well, she agreed with me. And then after I made the commitment before the Lord that I would not leave these people in a mess if I could help it, then I cast the vision.
Mm,
Then we raise the money. Then we move forward.
mhm,
Right. So a lot of hurting people in churches are just they're casualties of the last guy's incomplete vision.
mm.
And by the way, let me just say to my youth pastor colleagues, the youth ministry is notorious for this.
Yep.
The average uh, ministry cycle of a youth pastor is 9 months, one school year.
Mhm,
And so they'll come in and they're like, I got big dreams and big plans, and you should trust me quick. And you get the kids involved and the adults involved. And then you're like, yeah, I got a better job offer, or I'm tired. I don't want to do it anymore. And you have broken a trust, and you have made it exponentially more difficult for
mhm,
the other guy coming in to run at the next phase. So
mhm,
I think understanding all of that, understanding how much of that's running in the background, and if any of that is driving people, and then having like a clarity and a certainty to it. When you have a clarity of vision and a certainty of vision, then in a loving but unmoving way, um, you cannot move off of it. So I've been here for 33 years.
mhm.
If you go and pull the very first sermons that I did, get the audio cassette of, of the very first sermons that I did, was saying almost the exact same thing that I'm saying now.
Mm,
Like the broad parameters of that vision have never changed. Obviously, the details too.
Yeah.
But that is a massive thing, and it's wildly important because the people who sacrificed and trusted, um, I mean this in a spiritual sense, they're being rewarded. So I had breakfast with a friend of mine the other day. He's 78. He's taken the whole ride with me all the way through.
Mm.
He is one of the guys that turned over the building, resigned his eldership. He took
Mm.
all the hits. And he said to me the other day, he said, when I was praying with the Lord about whether I should do all that and get out of the way, he said, I just said to the Lord, Lord, I will do whatever you want me to do. The only thing I would ask is, will you let me see it work?
Mm.
And then I could cry, man.
Mm.
And then he started to cry. And he's like, Jeff, every time I come to church, God
Mm.
answers that prayer for me.
Wow.
Right. So, and I told him, I said, you made my day, buddy. Like, I know what you did. I was there. I asked you to do it. And God has been so faithful to him. And his reward is all these people that know Jesus. And I'm like, that's fun. And that is also like something that as a pastor, I have to steward,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because that's his relationship with God. It's not his relationship with me.
Mm.
And I have to steward it.
Mm.
And what I said was, if you'll keep doing supernatural things, I don't care that I live in Northeast Ohio. The weather sucks, and nobody really knows who we are, but I wanted to see you work.
Yeah.
And he's answered that prayer too. So it's
Mm.
those kind of things that you have to think through.
Mm.
Um, if you're not certain of that vision on a broad scale and you're not dedicated to it, none of the hits are worth it.
Mm.
If that vision is what God has laid on your heart and you're pouring your life into it, there's no hit that will hit you hard enough to make you stop.
Yep. True.
Right. And so it's the center point of the whole thing.
Yeah. Jeff, I love what you're saying about the understanding the context and the ministry that's been there in place before you arrive. Right. So your predecessor is key, because you could go the other side where you're talking about the turnover that's happened. And so, people might not trust you, but the same thing might be true when you're replacing somebody that's been there forever. They were the founding pastor, and
Yeah.
you're coming in because they've retired, and, they're passing the baton. So understanding the context of who you're taking over for, what the culture, what the traditions, what the history is all like, is a key part of setting yourself up appropriately for the right expectations to have. And then, are you building on the vision that's been there before and establishing further next steps, or are you tearing that down and restructuring what's been done before? So
Yeah. If you guys just think about it as remodeling a house,
mhm.
so Eric, you've done this with your home. But like you go in and you do both. You if you look at most ministries, unless the house is caught on fire or is completely destroyed by mold,
Yeah.
there's usually something to work with.
Mhm.
And when I use what is there to work with, I'm honoring the people who did the work before, and it builds trust.
Yep.
Um, as I remodel, as I communicate, I need to give them a new vision. Like I know Grandpa built these cabinets for your kitchen, but look what we could do. And if I could show them the reasons why,
Mm.
or the potential of why we can do what we can do, then it helps them as we're taking those cabinets out.
Right.
Sometimes the house is burned down and you have to bulldoze it, or sometimes it's so infected with mold you have to bulldoze it. That is certainly true. But if you're a paid staff person, that tells me that there's at least a remnant of people
Mm.
who are giving their dollars to pay you. you don't have to live in your grandma's house.
Mm,
Um, but as much, if you can honor grandma in every way as you remodel her house, it's always going to take you further. So I'll tell you this. So I took over the senior pastorate from my mentor. His name's Bob Combs.
mm,
And I did this years. Bob's 86, almost 80, or he's going on 87. So like this is a long, long time ago now, right? But Bob's still alive and he's still around, and the longer the better as far as I'm concerned. But I made a promise to myself, and I said this. I said every time Bob Combs is in the room with me, I am going to publicly honor him. Like he cannot be in a room with me that I do not publicly honor him.
mm,
Well, all that does, I do that because I love him so much. The practical side of it is all that does is build credibility for me,
mhm.
right? So I'll tease you till the till the day, as long as the day is long, but I also try to like honor you. So like when I go, even when I'm out with you, Eric, and we're in like your world, you've seen me do that. I'll talk
Mhm.
about like, well, Eric's amazing at this, he's amazing at this, he's amazing at this. That's because you're amazing at those things. And then the byproduct is the more that I do that, the more the people who trust you trust me.
Right.
If I walk in and I'm like, it was so dumb the way they did. Can you believe that people used to sing hymns? Do you ever heard of this stupid thing? Well, all I'm doing is I'm wounding people who are being
Mhm,
faithful,
mm,
and I sound like a young, arrogant person.
mm.
Because I'm dishonoring them.
Yeah.
So when you come in after a predecessor, they might have left you something, that you
Mhm.
can work with and say, well, we were really good at this and we're gonna lean into this to get better at it, kind of a thing. Um, you have to remodel, but you don't usually have to bulldoze, and there's exceptions.
Mm,
Sometimes you do have to bulldoze,
mhm.
and but a lot of times there's something to work with.
Yeah. Jeff, let's take this one click further. Why do you think maybe so many pastors or people that are entering ministry, maybe it's not a pastor, but a ministry professional, why are so many people surprised by how painful ministry can be? In some instances, you're working with people, and we know that theologically people are sinful, and that ministry can be hard. But go then, kind of give us like maybe why that is, and what can we do about it? How do we be proactive to help stop that trend? Maybe.
I think one of the biggest reasons is because the people who go into ministry are usually the healthiest parts of a church.
Mm,
So you weren't the problem. You were probably the best thing that happened to your pastor,
mm,
and the most committed kid in the youth group.
right.
And so you really only experienced the healthiest and the happiest parts of the church, and the
Mm,
people melting down was simply not a meeting that you were in. And so there's a
mm,
naivety to it.
mm,
Um, uh, it's funny, like my kids are going, several of them are in full-time ministry. They have a different experience because they saw the whole of the church. And even they have a naivety because I didn't come home and tell them everything that was going on. So
right.
I think that's a part of it.
Mm,
I think the way that you prepare for it is, first of all, don't be naive. Secondly, be very secure in who you are.
mm,
This is, I remember one time early on, maybe 5 or 6 years in, I had a lady go off on me in a hallway of the church. I mean, and Heidi was with me, my wife was with me. And this lady just launched at me about something. I don't remember what. It was something ridiculous, crazy.
mm,
And I kind of de-escalated her, and she left, and we left. We got in the car, and I looked at Heidi. I go, "You want to go get something to eat, or what do you want to do tonight?" And she looked at me and she goes, how are you fine right now? And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, you just got screamed at. How are you not all worked up? And this is what I said. And Pat and Bob Combs taught me this.
Mm.
I said, I looked at Heidi. I go, oh, you talking about so and so? She goes, yeah. And I said this. I said, oh, she wasn't yelling at me. She was yelling at Pastor Jeff.
Mm.
Now, Pastor Jeff could have been Pastor Eric, Pastor Dave, Pastor Tony, Pastor. She's yelling at a position. She's not yelling at a person. When a teenager goes off on you, they're probably yelling at their dad.
Mm.
And so one of the ways I learned to handle is I separate the two things. I'm like, it's actually impersonal. Because I'm just happen to be the guy in charge or the guy in the room. And so I'm the one that's taking the shrapnel, but it's impersonal.
Mm.
So that was a big part of it. The other big part of it is I had to learn to manage it when it was personal. So the most painful parts of ministry is when it's actually not grumpy people. It's people that you have invested your life into and you've shared life with who either betray you or leave you. Mm-hmm. The leaving you part's a little bit easier. It feels personal, but in reality, they're making personal decisions. That's everything from moving out of state to moving to the church down the road because they have a better kids program. The betraying part is what is wildly painful, where you find out they had an agenda the whole time. There's a power struggle. There's a duplicitous life that's being lived. And that is wildly, wildly painful. And when they move on, the solution to that is looking at the Lord and saying, okay, Lord, you build the church. I can be friends with people who don't go to church here. Like, how do we navigate that? It's usually some level of a reset. When they lash at you and then stomp out, usually the relationship gets cut off. It's just the way that it is. And that's where I have to ask God to help me to have a soft heart. There's a fine line between a thick skin and a hard heart. And I would say that's a line that you never walk perfectly.
Yeah.
And so understanding that. The third thing is this that I would say is when I get clobbered like that, when we get clobbered like that, it feels like you're dying. And in reality, you just got the wind knocked out of you. So if you've ever got the wind knocked out of you, you think at first, I'm suffocating. And the way that you get through that is actually to relax. And if you relax, like your lungs fill back up and you realize I'm not dying. That is most of the hits that we take. They knock the wind out of us. And what I have to do is for me, I have places of solace. For me, that's usually the woods or my property has a lot of woods on it. It's like a little bit of a safe zone for me. I need time away. I need time in nature that kind of fills me. And that's where I spend that intimate time with God. And I go back to the root of my calling. I get my head around it a little bit, find my courage. And I'm like, this is the gig I'm in. You know, you can't play in the NFL and be upset somebody tackled you every time. A dirty play, a broken leg feels differently, but the arena is a rough and tumble place. Especially when you're starting off. I think it smooths off a lot the older you get and the longer you're at someplace, but especially at the beginning, it's hard.
For sure. Jeff, thank you for sharing even just the the hardest types of hits that you can take in ministry. I think it is those moments where, you know, you're hitting the nail on the head, where you have people who are in your corner. They're your teammates. They're the closest people who have supported you or executed the vision together. And maybe you've even taken hits together. And so now when there's the sin issue or fallout and a disagreement and the betrayal or the, you know, the leaving, that initial season where that comes about, how do you guard your heart in that moment? That timeline is probably not super long to having, I like what you said of like, there's a thin line between having thick skin and a hard heart.
Yeah.
So much of that is going to take place in those initial couple days, maybe weeks, but how do you safeguard your heart in that? What do you recommend? I like the rest, the relax part. But at what point do you know, like, hey, I need to get some help. I need to ask for, you know, somebody else to take over navigating this. I don't know what. Talk us through that.
Yeah, I think the first piece is like don't react, you
Mm,
know, and so
mm,
everything from like you want to fight to you want to cry, you know, kind of thing. So don't react to it. Get away from it and process it. And usually what happens is I'll start trying to understand where did that come from,
mm.
and especially if it didn't come from me. So I'm like,
Yeah,
what else is going on in their life? All those kind of things.
yeah, it's good.
I'll seek some wise counsel. You
Mm,
know, if you are on a staff, you might talk to your senior about it. If you're a senior, you might talk to a friend or something like that.
mm,
Um, and then I'll kind of go from there, and then I have to address it accordingly.
mm.
So if you're causing division in the church, then I have to deal with you publicly. I don't mean from the pulpit, but I mean I got to meet with the leaders. I got to meet with the families. I got to talk this through, what this is and why this is, and I got to put a stop to it. Um, then you get into like church discipline stuff, you know, and you get into what Paul talks about with that. And if you have to go down that route, you have to go down that route.
Mm.
Mostly what you do, um, so there are nuances and it depends on like what we're talking about, you know, kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Yep.
Mostly what you do is you hold your head high,
Mm,
you turn the other cheek, you dial into the vision, and you become unapologetic for it. So it's I have this little saying when I'm hiring people. So we have, you know, uh, our church staff is huge, right?
mhm,
So I do a lot of hiring. And so when I'm hiring a key position like a director or a pastor, I have the same conversation with them every time. So we'll do all the interviews and blah, blah, blah.
mm,
When we get down to the final interview, I tell them your spouse has to come in, your wife has to come in, or if you're a director, your husband. And I have the same conversation with everybody, and I look at them and I'll say, "We're real excited about this. We want you to be here, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I want you to know something.
mm,
I want you to know that I will love you. I will serve you. I will defend you. I will resource you, and I will help you in any way that I can. And if you ever fight me for the vision of the church, I will fire you on the spot. And it will hurt, and it will disrupt your marriage, and it will disillusion your children, and I will do it.
mm,
If you cannot or will not perform the duties I hired you for, I will fire you. And you'll leave the church, and
mm.
your kids will have questions, and you'll struggle with being angry at me because you thought we were friends, and we are, but I will do it.
Yep.
And you need to know that. And the reason I say that is because I will do it.
Mm,
And the reason that I will do it is because I have paid a extremely high price for the vision and the mission of this place. And my job is to protect that.
mm.
I am the head
Mhm.
shepherd. So
Yeah.
my job is to protect that. And so that's usually what happens, whether it's hiring, firing, or it's pressing back against a volunteer. You have to find your resolve.
Mhm.
And that resolve is not your insecurity. It's not your anger. It's not your ego. It is, this is what God has called me to. This is what God has entrusted me with. And as long as he has me on this wall, it's the wall that I'm going to die on,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
So it's usually some pattern like that. And sometimes it just like, there was a time, a few years ago, I got canceled. I got my butt kicked. I was just, and it was after a long season of painful things. It was just one of those times. And I was so out of gas. I told Heidi, I said, I don't know, maybe I should go apologize to them and I should do this and that. And she looked at me and she goes, don't you dare. She goes, you have done nothing wrong. What you said was absolutely the truth. You've been godly in everything that you've done. You are not apologizing. Go
Mhm.
take a nap. She said. So I went up, I got up and went and took a nap.
Mhm.
I did what she made me do. And but I needed her to speak some courage into me because I was weary.
Mhm.
So I think Vince
Mhm.
Lombardi said, fatigues makes cowards of us all.
Mhm.
And there's times in these processes you get weary
Mhm.
and you need this podcast or you
Mhm.
need to call Eric or me or whatever,
Yeah.
um, because you need to be told you're not nuts, you know. And ideally, if you're on a team like I am, and like when Bob Combs was my boss and I was in youth ministry, he would speak courage into me.
Mhm.
Um, Later on, he does that more as a friend, but I've always had people around me that are like, yeah, you got a bloody nose, bud. That stinks.
Yeah.
Why don't you get up and go back in there, you know? And
Mhm.
that's where the phrase "you got to learn to take a hit" came from.
Yeah.
Is I'm like, this is you don't a 6-year-old playing Pop Warner football cannot take a hit in the NFL. But the way that an NFL player learns to take a hit in the NFL is they started taking one in Pop Warner football. So that's why you guys who are younger, you
Mhm.
might hear a guy like me or maybe your senior pastor, and you're like, they're not empathetic to us.
Mhm.
And I would say, no, 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 we're actually extremely empathetic to you. We just know it's the gig.
Yeah.
And you deciding that you're getting up off the field is actually what causes you to defeat your enemy,
Mhm.
you know. And so I'm like, you can remember in Captain America, he gets beat up and Captain America's like, I can do this all day long. Well, that's what made him a great superhero.
Mhm.
it
Mhm.
was it was it was that it's like, let's go again. And so I think you see that in our Lord.
Mhm.
You see that in the Apostle Paul. He's like, they let him out of jail. He's like, what? Let's go back preaching where we were preaching when we got arrested and beat and put in jail. You know,
Yeah.
so there's a sense of it. The reward is always eternal, and then the reward is also that your vision comes to bear.
Mhm.
So you look at like a church like Grace Church, this big old church with all 10 different locations and all the staff and all the rest, and it's impossible to fathom the cost of building this.
Mhm.
That's why one of the things that God helps me to do to have courage is I think he lets me see it.
Mhm.
And I'm like, if it means reaching 50 teenagers, I'll take that hit.
Mhm.
You know, if it means all these baptisms, I'll take that hit. And I think the Lord, when we're strong, when we long suffer and we persevere, God gives us reward. Well, I keep those rewards in front of me. That's why I know the numbers and the stats. It's not arrogance. It's like I gotta remind myself.
Mhm.
You know, if I'm getting clocked uh, for a paycheck, I'm not doing it. But if I'm getting clocked because 500 people came to know Jesus, I'll just
Game
turn the
on.
other cheek and you can hit me again. Like, I don't care that much, you
Yeah.
know? So you kind of get down into that a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, and it's what you have to reach for. And it's how you wind up resolving
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
the pressure of it all.
Yeah. All right, Jeff, as we kind of wind this down, let's envision that there is a pastor who reaches out, or a young ministry professional who's saying, I'm weary. I'm not sure how much longer I can put up with this, or I'm not sure how longer I can stay in the fight. And maybe, foreshadow. I think a lot of times ministry leaders, we know that there's seasons where God is clearly at work, and then there's seasons where things feel heavy and you're wondering if God's around and what's going on, and it's the grind. So
Mhm.
what do you say to them? What do you encourage them with? What advice would you give?
I would say this. I'd say stop acting like something unusual is happening to you. That guys, I know that sounds a little cliche, even though it's scripture, but if you change your expectations, it matters.
Mhm.
You know? So if you put on boxing gloves and go into the boxing ring, you're not surprised you got hit. If you get punched in a restaurant, it shocks you. So
Yeah.
just like no, like this is the gig, and it's a hard gig. The other thing I would say is this: build trust. So trust
Mhm.
is the currency of ministry.
Mhm.
So be looking for places that you can build trust. And the people who are willing to trust you in time will trust you. So there's a great quote says it's amazing how little I can get done in 1 year and how much I can get done in 5.
Mhm.
And the factor that shifts is people trust you, and
Mhm.
it changes the way that they interact with you. Um, Thirdly, find your courage and find your resolve. Um, you 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 cannot do ministry out of insecurity.
Mhm.
You will feel insecure in ministry, but that security has to come from the Lord. By the way, so does parenting, so does husbandry and being a wife and all of it.
True.
It's who I am in Christ.
Yeah.
And then I would say when you're beat up, remember that the wind got knocked out of you. You're not dying, and then reach out. So one of the most valuable things I have in my life are other pastors, Jason Haymaker, Jim Brown, Keith Manier. I could go on, who I call and complain to,
Mhm.
and we make church jokes with each other.
Mhm.
You know, because I need people who know when they need to look at me like Heidi did and say, "Why don't you just grow up, big boy? Like, go take a nap."
Yeah.
And then people who understand, like, "Oh man, like you are bleeding out. Get over here. Let me help put you back together." And so I have worked at that. Like Jason and I have met at least once a month for 30 years.
Mhm.
Keith and I talk all the time. Jim Brown and I run together and did podcasts together. And like we have valued and invested in those friendships.
Mhm.
And they have been sustaining for us in ministry. So,
Mhm.
and then always, 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 um, ministry looks like the cross of Jesus. It doesn't look like the throne of an ungodly king.
Yeah.
And so you're gonna wind up beaten and bloodied. That's what our Lord was, and yet the reward.
Mhm.
And so keeping that reward in front of you is a big part of it. Finally, let me say this. There are people who will not trust you, will not follow you, and there's nothing you can do about it. So when you reach that conclusion, there are times you need to leave a ministry. And again, I go back and I would seek a big counsel with that. None of this is about enabling people or you being a punching bag.
Yep.
And when you come to that point where because there are just wicked people that can be a part of a church, there's times you have to admit that also and do that from there. I think you navigate those things individually and very, very carefully.
Yep. We actually, Jeff, you and I did a whole podcast on that, like knowing when it is time to leave and step out. And so that's available. You can go back and find that. If you can't find it, reach out. We're happy to send it to you, because those are occurrences that sometimes do happen. But in this episode, Jeff, thanks for helping us keep going and to keep taking hits and keep fighting back. We want to be those mighty warriors who are in play in God's kingdom, and that he's using. I like to say we're going to storm the gates of hell with our squirt guns blazing. So
yeah,
let's go. Saddle up. Jeff, thank you for engaging in this conversation. To our listeners, we really do hope that this has been of value to you. This may be an episode you need to listen to again another time. This may be an episode you need to send to somebody else. And maybe it's just time to go take a nap. So that'll do it for today's episode. We're giving you permission. Reach out to us if you need us. We're here to help. We want to be in your corner and help encourage and support you however we can. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Momentum Ministry Partners Podcast. If you found this episode helpful, would you subscribe, rate, and leave us a review? That helps more people discover this podcast. We'd also love for you to share this episode with someone in your network who could benefit from the conversation. Because we want to be your go-to and most trusted resource, we'd love to hear from you. If you have a question or a topic you'd like us to cover in a future episode, send us an email to info@buildmomentum.org. Or you can send us a DM on any of our social media platforms. And if you want to learn more about Momentum Youth Conference, Urban Centers, Grace College Akron, Momentum Marketplace, or Momentum Pro, head over to buildmomentum.org. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next time.